The stars had never seemed so cold. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TSS Pathfinder, humanity's first true faster-than-light exploration vessel. Through the massive viewport, she could see the swirling colors of the nebula they had just passed through. It was beautiful, she thought. Nothing like the pictures from old telescopes. This was real. Humanity had finally done it. They had broken the light barrier and pushed into deep space. "Captain, we're picking up something," Lieutenant Marcus Webb called from the sensor station. His voice carried an edge of excitement. "Multiple contacts. They're big, really big," Sarah's heart raced. First contact. They had all dreamed of this moment during training. Humanity was about to meet their neighbors in the galaxy. She smoothed her uniform and stood straight. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Let's say hello." Before Marcus could respond, the ship's lights flickered. Every screen on the bridge went dark for a moment, then blazed back to life. But they weren't showing the Pathfinder's systems anymore. They showed a face. It wasn't human. The creature on the screen had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its skin was a deep purple, covered in scales that seemed to shimmer. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated the sounds into words that appeared at the bottom of the screen. "Attention, primitive vessel. You have entered the domain of the Vaksh Empire. State your species and origin." Sarah stepped forward, her mind racing. This was it. Humanity's first words to an alien species. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Collective, representing the human species from the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Then it made a sound that the computer didn't translate. It sounded like laughter, but wrong somehow, cruel. "Humans. Yes, we have detected your pathetic radio waves for some time. You are very young, very primitive. You will submit to Vaksh authority immediately." Sarah felt her stomach drop. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. She kept her voice steady. "We are a peaceful species, but we are also free. We will not submit to anyone. Perhaps we can establish diplomatic relations. Trade, cultural exchange?" More of that terrible laughter. The alien leaned closer to its own screen. "You misunderstand your position, human. The Vaksh Empire has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 of your years. We are the supreme authority. You are nothing, less than nothing. Your species is so young, so weak that you do not even qualify for slavery. You are vermin to be exterminated." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Around her, the bridge crew sat frozen in shock. 50,000 years. Humanity had only been in space for 300 years. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 6 months ago. "There must be some mistake," Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice calm. "We mean no threat to your empire. We simply want to explore, to learn." "Can't we—" "Silence!" The alien's voice became a roar. "The Council of 12 has made its decision. Your species will be cleansed from this galaxy. It is the way of things. The strong rule. The weak perish. This is galactic law." Behind the alien, Sarah could now see others. Dozens of different species, all watching the screen. Some looked curious. Others looked bored. None looked sympathetic. "You have one of your Earth days to surrender all human worlds," the alien continued. "If you comply, your deaths will be quick. If you resist, we will make your species suffer for generations before the end comes. Your choice is irrelevant. You will die, but you may choose how." Sarah felt something cold settle into her chest. Not fear, something else. Something that every human carried deep in their genetic memory. The thing that had helped them survive when every predator on Earth had wanted to eat them. When the ice came and the food ran out. When the plague swept through their cities. When they had stared into the abyss of extinction and decided to spit in its face. "No," Sarah said quietly. The alien tilted its head. "What did you say?" "I said no." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "You've made a terrible mistake. You think we're weak because we're young? You think we'll just roll over and die because you've been around longer than us? Let me tell you something about humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, disasters, our own stupidity. We survived it all. We didn't survive by giving up. We didn't survive by being weak. We survived by being too stubborn to die." She stepped closer to the screen, her eyes locked on the alien's 4. "You want to exterminate us? Fine, come and try. But I promise you this, humanity doesn't fight wars to win. We fight wars to erase anyone who threatens us from existence. You declared war on Earth? Then humanity declares war on your legacy. When we're done with you, No one will remember the Vaksh Empire ever existed. The alien stared at her for a long moment. Then it laughed again, louder this time. The other species behind it joined in. Amusing. Truly amusing. Very well, human. Die with your pride intact. The fleets are already on their way to your worlds. Broadcast this across your communications. Let your people know their time has ended. Let them weep and pray to their primitive gods. It will make no difference. The screen went dark. Sarah stood there, breathing hard. Around her, the crew sat in stunned silence. Captain? Marcus finally spoke. What? What do we do? Sarah turned to face them. They looked scared. They should be scared. But she also saw something else in their eyes. Anger, determination, that same stubborn human refusal to accept the inevitable. We go home, Sarah said. We warn Earth, and then we show these aliens what happens when you threaten humanity. The journey back to Earth took 3 days at maximum faster than light speed. 3 days during which Sarah sent ahead every scrap of data they had collected about the Vaksh. 3 days during which humanity learned they were not alone in the universe, and that their neighbors wanted them dead. When the Pathfinder finally dropped into normal space near Earth, Sarah could see the planet through the viewport. That beautiful blue marble, so small and fragile from up here, home to 8 billion humans who had no idea their entire species had just been marked for extinction. Captain, we're being hailed by Terran Command, Marcus reported. Put them through. The screen flickered to life again. This time it showed Admiral James Rodriguez, head of the Terran Collective's military forces. He was an old man, his hair white, his face lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and hard. Captain Chen, we received your transmission. The Council has reviewed the data. Sir, we need to prepare. The Vaksh said their fleets are already on the way. We need to evacuate the colonies, fortify Earth, build weapons. Captain. Rodriguez's voice cut through her words like a knife. The Council has made its decision. We will not be evacuating, we will not be running, and we will not be simply defending. He leaned forward, and Sarah saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. It was the look of a man who had made a terrible choice and accepted the consequences. Humanity has faced extinction before, Rodriguez said. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues that killed half our population, nuclear weapons pointed at our own cities. Every time we survived. Do you know how, Captain? Sarah shook her head. We survived because when pushed to the edge, when threatened with total annihilation, humanity doesn't just fight back. We become something else, something terrible, something that will do whatever it takes to ensure our species continues. Rodriguez pulled up a document on his screen. Sarah could see the header. Legacy Eradication Protocol. The Vaksh think they can exterminate us like vermin? Rodriguez's voice was quiet now, almost sad. Then we'll show them what happens when you threaten vermin that evolved to be the most dangerous predators on their planet. We won't just defeat them, Captain. We're going to erase them. Every world. Every monument. Every record. Every memory. When we're done, it will be like the Vaksh Empire never existed. Sarah felt her breath catch. Sir, that's genocide. That's the complete destruction of their entire civilization. Yes. Rodriguez didn't look away. It is. And before you judge, know that every member of the Council wrestled with this decision. We are not monsters, Captain. We don't want to do this. But they left us no choice. They came to us with hatred and declared our extinction. So we'll give them exactly what they tried to give us. We'll show the entire galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity with total war. He paused, and Sarah saw the weight of command in his eyes. We're not doing this because we're evil, Captain. We're doing this because we're human. Because every species that survives learns one fundamental truth. You protect your own, no matter the cost. The Vaksh are about to learn that lesson. And every other species watching will learn it too. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about Earth, about her family in New York, about the billions of humans who had never asked for this war, about the children playing in parks who would never know how close they had come to extinction. When she opened her eyes, she understood. What are your orders, sir? Rodriguez nodded slowly. Take the Pathfinder to the Forge shipyards. We're converting every ship in the fleet for war. You're going to be part of the first strike force. We hit them before they hit us. We hit them so hard they never recover. And the colonies, armed to the teeth. Every man, woman, and child who can hold a weapon will be trained. Every ship will carry enough firepower to take an enemy fleet with it. If the Vaksh want to take our worlds, they're going to pay for every inch in blood. Sarah thought about the alien on the screen, laughing at humanity's weakness. She thought about the other species watching, amused by the primitives who dared to resist. They thought humans were weak because they were young. They were about to learn the difference between age and experience, between time and survival. The Vaksh had ruled for 50,000 years in peace. Humanity had clawed its way up from the mud in constant warfare against everything that wanted to kill them. "One more thing, Captain," Rodriguez said. "We're broadcasting a message to the Vaksh. To all of them. Would you like to record it?" Sarah straightened. "Yes, sir." A new screen appeared, showing a red recording light. "Attention, Vaksh Empire," Sarah began, her voice clear and strong. "You gave us one day to surrender. We give you this single chance to withdraw. Leave human space. Leave us alone. Return to your empire and forget you ever found us." She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. "If you continue this attack, you will regret it. Not because we'll defeat you, though we will, but because when this is over, when the dust settles and the stars grow cold, no one will remember you existed. Your empire, your culture, your history, all of it will be gone, erased, forgotten." Sarah leaned closer to the camera. "You declared war on Earth. Humanity declares the destruction of your legacy. Choose wisely. You have one day." The recording light went dark. Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Think they'll listen?" Sarah thought about the alien's 4 eyes, full of contempt and cruelty. She thought about the laughter, the casual dismissal of human life. She thought about the 50,000 years of ruling without challenge, without fear, without ever meeting someone who would fight back with everything they had. "No, sir. They won't." "Good." Rodriguez's expression hardened. "Because we've already started. Operation Legacy Erasure is in effect. The war has begun." Sarah looked out at Earth one more time. Beautiful, fragile, worth fighting for, worth killing for, worth becoming monsters for. The Vaksh had no idea what they had unleashed. But they would learn. Oh, how they would learn. The Vaksh fleet commander Zarthax had seen 1,000 worlds fall. In his 300 years of service to the Empire, he had crushed rebellions, destroyed primitive civilizations, and brought order to chaos across dozens of star systems. This latest assignment seemed almost insulting in its simplicity. Humans, a species barely out of their own solar system. No shields worth mentioning, no proper weapons. Their fastest ships could barely break light speed. The Council had assigned him 20 dreadnoughts for this task, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. It was like using a sledgehammer to crush an insect. "Commander, we're approaching the human colony designated New Shanghai," his tactical officer reported. "Population 2 million. Defenses minimal. 3 orbital platforms with primitive kinetic weapons. 6 patrol ships." Zarthax settled into his command throne. "Standard procedure. Destroy the defenses, land troops, secure the population for cleansing. Let's make this quick." The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Zarthax studied the tactical display with mild interest. The human colony orbited a pleasant yellow star, much like their homeworld. The planet itself was covered in blue oceans and green continents. It looked peaceful, defenseless. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the colony. Let's hear it." A human face appeared on the screen, male older with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore what appeared to be a military uniform. "Vaksh vessels, this is Colonel David Park, commanding officer of New Shanghai. We know why you're here. We know what you intend to do." Zarthax leaned forward slightly. At least this one wasn't begging. That made things more interesting. "Then you understand resistance is futile," Zarthax said. "Surrender now and your deaths will be painless." The human's expression didn't change. "We've evacuated all civilians to the underground shelters. We've sent our children away on every ship we had. What's left here are soldiers. And we have a message for your empire." "Oh? And what message would that be?" Colonel Park's eyes grew cold. "If you want this world, you'll have to pay for it. Every building, every street, every inch of ground. We'll make you bleed for it. And when you think you've won, when you think it's over, that's when the real price comes due." Zarthax felt a flicker of annoyance. Brave words from dead men. "Begin the attack." The Vaksh fleet opened fire. Plasma beams lanced across space, cutting through the orbital platforms like paper. The human ships tried to fight back, their primitive missiles and railguns bouncing harmlessly off Vaksh shields. Within minutes, the defense fleet was debris and wreckage. Land the troops, Zarthax ordered. Secure the major cities. What happened next would haunt Zarthax for the rest of his life. The first wave of Vaksh soldiers landed in the colony's capital city. They expected fleeing civilians, maybe some token resistance from local police. Instead, they found themselves in a nightmare. Every building was trapped. Doors exploded. Windows contained snipers who fired until they ran out of ammunition, then detonated suicide charges. The streets themselves were mined, rigged to explode when Vaksh weight sensors detected alien footfalls. And the humans fought like demons. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," the ground commander reported. "These humans, they don't retreat, they don't surrender. They fight until they're dead, and they take as many of us with them as possible." Zarthax watched the tactical display with growing disbelief. His forces outnumbered the humans 5-1. They had better weapons, better armor, better everything. But the casualty reports kept climbing. For every human killed, 3 Vaksh soldiers died. "How is this possible?" Zarthax muttered. A human soldier surrounded by 20 Vaksh warriors detonated a bomb strapped to his chest. The blast killed everyone within 50 feet. Another human, shot through the chest and bleeding out, used his last seconds to trigger explosives that brought down an entire building on a Vaksh squad. A human sniper, both legs blown off, kept firing until a plasma bolt finally ended her. They didn't fight like any species Zarthax had ever encountered. They fought like they had nothing to lose, like death meant nothing compared to taking the enemy with them. "Pull back," Zarthax finally ordered. "Orbital bombardment. We'll level the cities from space." But as his ships moved into position, something else happened. Something impossible. The star flared, not a natural flare. This was different. Massive, directed. A wall of superheated plasma erupted from the sun's surface, racing toward the Vaksh fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. Evasive action. Zarthax screamed. Too late. The coronal mass ejection hit the fleet like the fist of an angry god. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Zarthax's dreadnought at the rear of the formation survived only because 3 other ships absorbed the worst of the blast. When it was over, 18 of his 20 ships were gone. Thousands of Vaksh soldiers dead. An entire fleet destroyed, and on the planet below, Colonel Park's voice came over the communications channel. "One last time. We told you. You want our world? You'll pay for it. Every single inch." Then the channel went dead as the plasma wave washed over the planet itself, scorching the surface clean of life. The humans had weaponized their own star. They had killed themselves and taken the entire Vaksh fleet with them. Zarthax sat in his damaged command throne, staring at the tactical display. At the graveyard of ships, at the blackened world that had been New Shanghai. "Get me the council," he whispered. News of New Shanghai spread through the Vaksh Empire like wildfire. The council, which had expected a simple extermination campaign, suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. A species that preferred mutual destruction to surrender. "This changes nothing," High Chancellor Vormesh declared from the council chambers. "So one world chose suicide. This proves they know they cannot defeat us. They can only die." But more reports came in. More colonies. More horrors. At New Tokyo, the humans had rigged their fusion reactors to overload. When the Vaksh fleet arrived, the entire planet became a miniature sun for exactly 17 seconds, long enough to destroy everything in the system. At New Berlin, the humans fought building to building, room to room. It took the Vaksh 3 months to secure the planet. They lost 40,000 soldiers doing it. When it was over, they found the humans had destroyed every piece of historical data, every cultural artifact, every work of art. They had erased their own legacy rather than let the Vaksh have it. At New Mumbai, the humans did something even worse. They surrendered. The Vaksh, relieved to finally have an easy victory, accepted. Then they discovered the humans had infected themselves with dozens of alien diseases, biological weapons designed to be harmless to humans, but lethal to every species in the Vaksh Empire. Within days, the plague spread to the occupation fleet. Within weeks, it had reached 3 nearby Vaksh systems. Millions died before the quarantine took effect. "What are they?" Vormesh demanded, watching yet another casualty report scroll across his display. "What kind of species does this?" His intelligence officer, a quiet female from the Keltar species, spoke softly. Sir, I've been studying human history, their own history from before they reached space, and they've been doing this to each other for thousands of years. Their own wars make our campaigns look gentle. They've created weapons specifically designed to kill their own species in the most efficient ways possible. Nuclear weapons, biological agents, chemical attacks. They've come within moments of making their own planet uninhabitable multiple times. She pulled up images on the display. Cities reduced to rubble, millions dead in trenches, mushroom clouds rising over population centers. They evolved on a death world, sir. A planet that tried to kill them with ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, and plagues. They survived it all, and in doing so they became something we've never encountered before. What's that? A species that treats extinction as a personal insult. They don't just fight to survive, sir. They fight to ensure that if they die, they take their enemy with them. It's in their genetic memory. It's part of their culture. Every major human religion has stories about martyrs who died to hurt their enemies. Every human culture celebrates warriors who chose death over surrender. Vormesh stared at the images, at the human capacity for self-destruction turned against an outside threat. How do we fight this? I don't know if we can, sir. Every tactic we try, they have a counter.
We bombard from orbit?
They weaponize their infrastructure to take out our fleets. We land troops. They turn every building into a death trap. We try to contain them. They find ways to spread death beyond their borders. Another report came in. The Vaksh fleet at New Athens had been destroyed by a human ship that accelerated to near light speed and simply rammed the flagship. The kinetic energy had been equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The ship had been unmanned, controlled by an AI programmed with one simple instruction: kill the enemy. Sir, there's more, the intelligence officer said quietly. We've detected unusual activity in human space. They're building something, lots of somethings. The Ford shipyards near Earth are operating at maximum capacity. They're converting every civilian ship into a warship, every factory into a weapons manufacturer. How long until they're ready to launch a counterattack? Sir, I don't think they're planning a counterattack. What do you mean? The intelligence officer brought up a new display. It showed trajectories, projections, strategic analysis. Based on their activity patterns, I believe they're preparing for total war. Not just defense. Not just counterattacks. They're building the capacity to fight across dozens of systems simultaneously. They're creating automated weapons platforms, self-replicating factories, AI-controlled ships. They're preparing to take the war to us. Vormesh felt something he hadn't felt in his long life as High Chancellor. Fear. That's impossible. They don't have the technology. They don't have the resources. They're one species against an empire of 12. Sir, they're humans. They've never let impossible stop them before. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Himalayas, Admiral Rodriguez watched the same reports the Vaksh were seeing, but he had additional information. Information about humanity's true preparations. How long until the fleets are ready? He asked his chief engineer. 6 months for the first wave. 18 months for full deployment. And the other projects? The von Neumann swarms are ready for deployment. The mimetic weapons are being distributed to our intelligence teams. The reality distortion devices are still experimental, but they show promise. And the Star Killers... The engineer paused, looking uncomfortable. The Star Killers are ready, sir. But I have to say, using them feels wrong. We'd be destroying entire solar systems. Billions of lives. Rodriguez nodded slowly. I know, but they started this. They came to us with genocide in their hearts. They thought we were weak because we're young. They're about to learn the difference between age and experience. He pulled up a star map showing the Vaksh Empire. 12 species, 40,000 systems, trillions of beings who had lived in peace for 50,000 years. Soon that peace would be shattered. Send the message to all human forces, Rodriguez ordered. Operation Legacy Erase begins in 72 hours. Every target, every system. We hit them everywhere at once. We don't stop until there's nothing left to hit. Sir, what if they surrender? Rodriguez looked at the young officer who had asked the question. There was hope in his eyes. Hope that somehow this could be resolved without becoming monsters. Then we'll accept their surrender, Rodriguez said. After we've destroyed everything they are. After we've erased their culture, their history, their legacy. After we've made sure the entire galaxy knows what happens when you threaten humanity with extinction. He turned back to the star map. They declared war on Earth. Now they'll learn what that truly means. They'll learn that humans don't fight wars to win battles. We fight wars to ensure our enemies never threaten us again, even if it means becoming the monsters they accused us of being. In space, the first human fleet began moving toward Vaksh territory, 200 ships each crewed by humans who had lost family members in the colony attacks, each carrying enough firepower to level a planet, each prepared to do whatever it took to protect humanity's future. The Vaksh had awakened something terrible, something that had slept in humanity's genetic code since their ancestors first picked up rocks to defend themselves from predators. The survival instinct of a species that refused to die quietly. And now that instinct was focused outward, toward the stars, toward an enemy that had made the fatal mistake of threatening human extinction. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson that Earth's creatures had learned millions of years ago. Never corner a predator that has nothing left to lose. The first human fleet arrived at the Vaksh border world of Kelvora without warning. No declaration, no ultimatum, just 300 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel and immediately opening fire. Commander Zarthax, reassigned to border defense after the new Shanghai disaster, watched in horror as his sensor screens lit up with targets. Human ships moving with coordinated precision launched their attack, but they weren't targeting military installations. They weren't aiming for the orbital defense platforms or the fleet yards or even the government centers. They were targeting the museums. "Sir, the humans are firing on the Heritage District," his tactical officer reported. "They're destroying the Archive of Founding, the monument to the First Empire, the Hall of Ancestors." Zarthax stared at the display. The Heritage District contained no weapons, no military value. It was simply where the Vaksh kept their most treasured historical records. 5,000 years of culture, art, and history. The humans turned it to ash in minutes. "Return fire," Zarthax screamed, but the human ships were already moving, dancing between Vaksh weapons fire with impossible agility. They targeted the next cultural site, then the next. Libraries, art galleries, historical monuments, anything that held meaning to the Vaksh people. "They're not trying to conquer us," Zarthax whispered. "They're trying to erase us." Within the hour, Kelvora's cultural heritage was gone. 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge destroyed, and the human fleet simply jumped away, moving to the next system before Vaksh reinforcements could arrive. It was the same across 24 border worlds. Human strike forces appeared, destroyed anything of historical or cultural value, and vanished. They didn't occupy. They didn't hold ground. They simply erased and moved on. "This is madness," High Chancellor Vormesh said, reviewing the damage reports. "They're not even trying to win the war. They're just destroying things." His intelligence officer brought up a new file. "Sir, we've intercepted human communications. They're calling it the Legacy Eradication Protocol." "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what it sounds like, sir. They're not trying to defeat us militarily. They're trying to ensure that even if the Vaksh Empire survives, it will have no history, no culture, no legacy. They want to make it as if we never existed." Vormesh felt his blood run cold. "That's not warfare. I don't even have a word for it." "Humans do, sir. They call it scorched earth. It's an old military tactic. If you can't hold territory, you destroy everything of value so your enemy gains nothing. But they've taken it further. They're not destroying resources. They're destroying memory itself." Another report came in. The humans had deployed something new. Small autonomous drones that infiltrated Vaksh computer networks and corrupted historical databases. They didn't just delete information. They replaced it with false data, fabricated histories that made the Vaksh look weak, cowardly, incompetent. "They're rewriting our past," Vormesh whispered. But the cultural destruction was only the beginning. The humans had other weapons, more terrible still. On the planet Vortalis, home to the Dren species, one of the 12 members of the Vaksh Empire, something strange began happening. The planetary communications network started broadcasting a signal. At first, the Dren thought it was Vaksh propaganda. Then they realized it was something else entirely. It was the truth. Human psychological operations teams had infiltrated the system and uploaded thousands of historical documents. Real documents, not propaganda. They showed how the Vaksh had conquered the Dren homeworld 3,000 years ago, how they had crushed Dren culture and replaced it with Vaksh ideology, how millions of Dren had been killed in the pacification. The documents showed the same pattern across all 11 client species. The Vaksh Empire wasn't a coalition of equals. It was a dictatorship that had conquered and subjugated dozens of species, then forced them to worship their conquerors. This is all lies, Vormesh insisted, even as riots broke out across Fortalis. Propaganda. Sir, they're using our own records, the intelligence officer said quietly. These are Vaksh documents, from our own archives. The humans somehow accessed our classified files and are now broadcasting them to everyone. The Empire began to fracture. The Dren were the first to rebel. Their fleet, which had been fighting alongside Vaksh forces, suddenly turned their weapons on their former allies. Within days, 3 Dren worlds declared independence. The Keltar followed. Then the Morvex. One by one, the client species learned what had been hidden from them for thousands of years. And one by one, they rose up against Vaksh rule. How did the humans know? Vormesh demanded. How did they find these documents? Our archives are the most secure in the galaxy. His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we've discovered something disturbing. The humans have infiltrated our networks at every level. They've been inside our systems since the war began. Maybe even before. That's impossible. Our encryption is unbreakable. Apparently not to humans, sir. They have some kind of advanced artificial intelligence. It doesn't just break our codes. It learns them, adapts to them, becomes them. We've found human AI signatures in everything from our military databases to our personal communication networks. Vormesh felt the ground shift beneath him. The empire his people had built over 50,000 years was collapsing. And the humans were doing it without even fighting a traditional war. We need to strike back, Vormesh said. Hit Earth. Show them that two can play this game. The Vaksh assembled their largest fleet. 5,000 ships carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. They would jump to Earth, destroy its defenses, and make humanity pay for their insolence. The fleet never made it. Halfway to Earth, they encountered something that sensors could barely register. Clouds of tiny machines, each no bigger than a grain of sand. Von Neumann swarms, self-replicating nanomachines that consumed everything in their path and used the raw materials to make more of themselves. The Vaksh fleet tried to fight. They used lasers, plasma weapons, even nuclear missiles. Nothing worked. The swarm simply adapted, learned, and continued consuming. Ships disappeared piece by piece, devoured by machines too small to target effectively but numerous enough to strip a dreadnought to its skeleton in hours. Fall back, the fleet commander ordered, but the swarm followed them. It spread across 3 systems, consuming Vaksh infrastructure faster than it could be rebuilt. Stations, shipyards, even planetary defenses all fell before the endless hunger of the human machines. And still, the humans pressed their advantage. Captain Sarah Chen, now commanding a strike force of 50 ships, jumped into the Korvash system. It was a core Vaksh world, home to 10 billion citizens and some of the Empire's most important military installations. Target the military bases, Sarah ordered. Conventional weapons only. No civilian casualties if we can avoid it. Her tactical officer looked confused. Captain, I thought we were supposed to erase their legacy, yes. But we're not monsters. We'll destroy their ability to fight and their cultural heritage. But we don't murder civilians. That's what separates us from them. The strike force hit the military targets with precision. Barracks, fleet yards, weapons factories all turned to rubble. But the hospitals, schools, and residential areas remained untouched. Then Sarah deployed the next weapon, broadcasting on all frequencies. Her communications officer reported. Sarah activated the recording. She had practiced this speech 100 times. People of Korvash, we are humans. Your leaders declared war on our species. They sent fleets to exterminate us. They called us vermin. They said we would be cleansed from the galaxy. She paused, letting the words sink in. But we are still here, and now we bring you a choice. Your empire is falling. Your subject species are rebelling. Your fleets are being consumed by our machines. Your history is being erased. Soon there will be nothing left of the Vaksh Empire but dust and forgotten dreams. Another pause. You can continue to fight for leaders who see you as tools. Or you can surrender. Lay down your weapons. Let this war end. We don't want to kill you. We just want to ensure our survival. And that means ensuring the Vaksh Empire as it exists must end. The broadcast continued. If you surrender, we will spare your lives. We will help rebuild your worlds. We will even help you preserve your culture and history. The real history, not the propaganda your leaders have fed you. But the empire must fall. The tyranny must end. Sarah cut the transmission. Captain, was that authorized? Her XO asked quietly. No, Sarah admitted. But we're out here doing the dirty work while Command stays safe on Earth. I've seen what this war is doing to us. We're becoming the monsters they accused us of being. I won't let that happen without at least trying a different approach. Over the next week, 3 Vaksh worlds surrendered to Sarah's fleet. Not because they were defeated militarily, but because they were tired. Tired of war, tired of lies. Tired of an empire that had ruled through fear for 50,000 years. But not all Vaksh were ready to give up. In the capital system of Vakturis Prime, the High Council made a desperate decision. They would use the Forerunner device. The Forerunners were an ancient race that had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind only ruins and mysterious technology. The Vaksh had discovered one such device buried on their homeworld. They had studied it for 10,000 years without fully understanding it. But they knew it was a weapon that could alter reality itself. Are you certain this will work? Vormesh asked the lead scientist. No, High Chancellor, but our analysis suggests it can manipulate causality. If we're correct, we can use it to erase the humans from the timeline. They will never have existed. Never have evolved. Never have become a threat. Vormesh looked at the device. It was beautiful in its own way. A crystalline structure that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. Power readings from it were off the charts. If they could harness even a fraction of that power. Do it, Vormesh ordered. Activate the device. End this war before humanity destroys everything we've built. The scientists began the activation sequence. They never finished. The wall exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came something that made even hardened Vaksh warriors step back in fear. Human soldiers, but not like any they had seen before. These were augmented, enhanced with stolen alien technology and their own innovations. They moved faster than should be possible. Their weapons fired rounds that punched through Vaksh armor like paper. Leading them was a woman with eyes that glowed faintly blue, neural implants connecting her directly to her squad's tactical network. She moved with mechanical precision, each motion perfectly calculated. Secure the device, she ordered. The Vaksh guards tried to fight. They died within seconds. The human special forces team moved through them like death itself, showing no mercy and taking no prisoners. Vormesh found himself staring at the glowing-eyed woman as she approached him. She held a weapon pointed at his head. You're High Chancellor Vormesh, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Vormesh asked. How did you know about the device? This facility is completely secret. No one outside the High Council knows it exists. The woman smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. We've had agents inside your government since the war began. In your military, in your intelligence services, in your own household staff. We know everything about you, Chancellor. Everything you've planned. Everything you've tried. Everything you've failed to accomplish. Vormesh felt his legs give out. He slumped against the wall. Then it's over. You've won. No, the woman said. We haven't won. Because winning isn't enough. You declared war on our existence. So we're declaring war on your legacy. When we're done, no one will remember the Vaksh Empire. Your achievements will be forgotten. Your culture will be dust. Your very name will be erased from history. She gestured to her team. They began planting charges around the Forerunner device. Wait, Vormesh cried. That technology could benefit everyone. It could advance science by millennia. You can't just destroy it. Watch us, the woman said. The charges detonated. The Forerunner device, one of the most powerful artifacts in the galaxy, shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Its potential, its secrets, its promise, all gone in an instant. The woman looked down at Vormesh one last time. You wanted to erase us from the timeline. Now we're erasing you from history. Fair trade, wouldn't you say? Then she was gone, her team vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Vormesh sat alone in the ruined chamber, surrounded by the fragments of his empire's last hope. He finally understood what the humans had been trying to tell them from the beginning. This wasn't a war for territory. It wasn't a war for resources. It was a war for existence itself. And humanity had decided that if their existence was threatened, they would threaten existence itself to survive. The Vaksh had ruled for 50,000 years. They had brought order to the galaxy. They had created a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. And in less than a year, the humans were tearing it all down, not with superior technology, Not with greater numbers, but with pure, unrelenting determination to survive at any cost. The humans were teaching the galaxy a lesson about what happens when you threaten a species that evolved by surviving the unsurvivable, about what happens when you declare war on beings who had learned to wage war against their own planet, their own nature, their own extinction. The Vaksh had declared war on Earth. Humanity had declared the destruction of their legacy. And humanity, Formesh realized with growing horror, was very good at destruction. 5 years, that was how long it took for the Vaksh Empire to collapse. 50,000 years of history, of achievement, of civilization, reduced to scattered remnants desperately trying to survive the human onslaught. Commander Zarthax stood on the observation deck of what remained of the Vaksh fleet. Through the viewport he could see the graveyard of ships floating in the void. Not just Vaksh ships, but vessels from all across the former empire. The Dren, the Keltar, the Morvex, all the species that had once been part of the Grand Coalition, were now either fighting alongside the humans or simply trying to stay out of their way. "How many ships do we have left?" Zarthax asked his second-in-command. 237, sir. Down from 40,000 at the war's beginning. Zarthax closed his eyes. 200 ships against an enemy that seemed to multiply faster than they could be destroyed. The humans had developed something they called von Neumann swarms, self-replicating machines that consumed asteroids and dead worlds to build more ships, more weapons, more death. At first, the Vaksh had tried to fight the swarms conventionally. It was like trying to stop the tide with their bare hands. For every human machine they destroyed, 10 more appeared. The swarms learned from every encounter, adapted to every weapon, evolved with each battle. Then the swarms did something worse than simply destroying Vaksh infrastructure. They began building their own. Across 100 systems, human machines consumed the raw materials of dead worlds and constructed massive factories, shipyards, and weapons platforms. They built them faster than the Vaksh could respond. Entire sectors fell dark as human automated defenses made it impossible for Vaksh ships to even approach. "Sir, there's more," his second said quietly. "The humans have deployed a new weapon. They're calling it chrono-strategic warfare. What does that mean? They're using relativistic weapons. Ships accelerated to near light speed, carrying bombs that create localized time distortions. When they detonate near our fleets, they create zones where time moves differently." Zarthax felt his stomach turn. How differently? The Kelvar defense fleet jumped into what they thought was a standard engagement. The humans detonated one of these weapons. From the perspective of the Kelvar ships, the battle lasted 3 days. They fought, ran out of ammunition, tried to retreat, and were destroyed. That doesn't sound particularly devastating. 3 days is manageable. Sir, from our perspective, the battle lasted 17 minutes, but inside the time distortion field, the Kelvar fleet experienced subjective years. They aged. Their ship systems degraded. Their crews went mad from the psychological effects of being trapped in that bubble. By the time it collapsed, they were already dead. Their ships were derelicts, their crews nothing but desiccated corpses. Zarthax turned away from the viewport, unable to look at the graveyard anymore. What kind of species wages war with time itself? Humans, sir. They're not like anything we've ever encountered. They don't just develop weapons, they weaponize everything. Physics, biology, information, psychology, reality itself. A new alert appeared on the tactical display. Another human fleet approaching their position. "All ships prepare for engagement," Zarthax ordered, though he knew it was futile. Every engagement with the humans ended the same way. Vaksh defeat. But then something unexpected happened. The human fleet stopped just outside weapons range. A communication request appeared. "Put them through," Zarthax said. Captain Sarah Chen appeared on the screen. Zarthax recognized her. She had become famous throughout the Empire as the human who sometimes offered mercy. Some called her weak for it. Others called her the most dangerous human of all because she made the enemy hope. "Commander Zarthax," Sarah said, "I'm here to offer terms." "Surrender, you mean?" "Yes, surrender of all remaining Vaksh military forces. Immediate cessation of hostilities. In exchange, we guarantee the safety of your crews and the surviving Vaksh civilian population." Zarthax laughed bitterly. "Why should we trust you? You've spent 5 years destroying everything we are, erasing our history, corrupting our culture, turning our allies against us. Why should we believe you'll show mercy now?" Sarah's expression remained neutral. "Because this war needs to end. Because continued fighting serves no one. Because you're going to lose anyway, and this way at least your people survive. Survive as what? A defeated species, our legacy destroyed, our empire nothing but a cautionary tale? Yes, Sarah said simply. That's exactly what you'll be. And you brought it on yourselves. Before Zarthax could respond, another alert appeared. This one made his blood run cold. High Chancellor Vormesh was broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention all Vakresh forces and citizens. This is your High Chancellor. I speak to you in our darkest hour. The humans have brought us to the brink of extinction. They have destroyed our history, corrupted our allies, and reduced our mighty empire to scattered remnants. Zarthax watched as Vormesh's face appeared on every screen. The Chancellor looked older, haggard, but his eyes burned with desperate determination. But we are not defeated. We have one final option, one last weapon that can save us. The ancient Forerunner vaults beneath our capital contain more than just the device the humans destroyed. They contain a weapon beyond imagining, a weapon that can reshape reality itself. Sarah's expression changed. Oh no. Tell me he's not. I have authorized the activation of the Causality engine, Vormesh continued. This device has the power to alter the fundamental structure of space-time. We will use it to erase humanity from existence, not just to kill them, but to ensure they never evolved, never achieved consciousness, never threatened us. Zarthax felt his hands shaking. He's insane. That weapon, we don't even fully understand it. Activating it could destroy everything. The price is irrelevant, Vormesh said as if he could hear Zarthax's thoughts. Better to risk destruction than to accept defeat. If we cannot have victory, we will have vengeance. The Causality engine activates in 1 hour. The broadcast ended. Sarah looked directly at Zarthax. You need to stop him. I can't. He's in the capital system. It would take days to reach him, and we have less than an hour. Then you need to help us stop him. Zarthax stared at her. Why would I do that? If the Chancellor succeeds, humanity is erased. The war ends. We win. If he succeeds, everyone loses, Sarah said urgently. Our scientists have been studying Forerunner technology. The Causality engine doesn't just rewrite one timeline. It destabilizes all of them. If your Chancellor activates it, he won't just erase humanity. He'll create a cascade effect that could unravel reality itself. Everything, everyone, gone. You're lying. You just don't want to lose. I wish I was lying. Sarah pulled up data on her screen. We've run the calculations. The Forerunner technology is more dangerous than you know. That's why they disappeared. They tried to use these weapons and they destroyed themselves. The engine is still active in ruins across the galaxy. Dormant, waiting for someone stupid enough to wake them up. Zarthax looked at his second-in-command. The younger officer was pulling up their own analysis of Forerunner technology. His face went pale. Sir, she's right. The energy signatures we've detected from the capital, if they activate that device at full power, the resulting spatial distortion could spread across the entire sector, maybe further. Zarthax closed his eyes. 50,000 years of civilization, and it came down to this. Trust the enemy to save everyone, or let his Chancellor risk everything for vengeance. What do you need? He asked Sarah. Your access codes. The capital's defenses will recognize your ships. You can get our strike team close enough to stop the activation. And if I do this, if I betray my own species to help you, then maybe, just maybe, we can end this war without everyone dying. Zarthax made his decision. He transmitted his command codes to Sarah's fleet. I've just committed treason, he said quietly. No, Sarah replied. You've just saved your species. Let's move. The combined human and Vakresh fleet jumped to the capital system. They arrived to find it heavily defended. Thousands of automated weapons platforms. Dozens of defense ships and the full might of what remained of Vormesh's loyalist forces. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Sarah ordered. We need to clear a path to the surface. The battle was brutal. Vakresh ships fought Vakresh ships while human vessels carved through the defenses. Zarthax found himself firing on his own people, watching ships he had served alongside for decades explode under his weapons, but they were running out of time. 30 minutes until activation, Sarah's tactical officer reported. We're not going to make it, Zarthax said. The defenses are too strong. Sarah looked at him, then made a decision. All human ships execute Protocol Omega. Authorization Chen Alpha 7. Captain, are you sure? Her XO asked. Do it. Zarthax watched in horror as the human ships began to change. They weren't retreating. They were transforming. combining, merging together into something larger, something terrible. The human vessels, each one controlled by advanced AI and crewed by soldiers willing to die for their mission, came together to form a single massive ship. It looked wrong, unnatural, like something that shouldn't exist in normal space. "What is that?" Zarthax whispered. "Our final option," Sarah said. "It's called a Coalescence-class warship. Every human ship has the capability to merge with others, creating exponentially more powerful vessels. We've never used it before because it's irreversible. The ships and their AI cores permanently fuse. They can never be separated again." The coalescence ship began moving toward the planet. Weapons fire from the defense platform simply splashed against its shields. It was massive, powerful, and unstoppable. 10 minutes, the tactical officer said. The coalescence ship entered the atmosphere, burning through it like a meteor. It crashed directly into the Capitol building where Vormesh was activating the Causality engine. Through the smoke and fire, Zarthax saw armored figures emerging, human special forces, the same type that had destroyed the first Forerunner device. They fought through Vormesh's personal guard, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. Sarah appeared on Vormesh's screen, just as he was about to press the final activation button. "Don't," she said simply. Vormesh looked at her, his finger hovering over the control. "Why shouldn't I? You've destroyed everything. Our empire, our culture, our future. Why should I let humanity survive when you've taken everything from us?" "Because your species deserves to survive," Sarah said. "Even after everything you've done, even after you declared our extinction, we're not going to wipe you out. We're going to let you live, rebuild, and remember. Remember what happened when you declared war on humanity. And if I activate this device, then you kill everyone, including your own people. Is your pride worth more than the lives of every Vaksh still alive?" Vormesh's finger trembled. He looked at the device, at the power that could erase his enemies from existence. Then he looked at Sarah, at the human who had shown mercy when she could have shown only vengeance. He pulled his hand away from the control. "I surrender," he whispered. The human special forces moved in, securing the device and taking Vormesh into custody. The war, for all practical purposes, was over. But as Zarthax watched the human ships begin their occupation of the capital system, he realized something terrifying. This wasn't a victory for humanity. It was a lesson the entire galaxy would never forget. The humans had proven they could destroy an empire that had stood for 50,000 years. They had shown they could erase culture, corrupt allies, weaponize reality itself. They had become exactly what the Vaksh had accused them of being, a threat to galactic order. But they had also shown mercy. They had stopped short of genocide. They had offered terms when they could have simply annihilated their enemy. The galaxy would remember both lessons. The humans were dangerous beyond measure, but they were not monsters. They were something far more complex, far more unpredictable. They were survivors who would do anything to ensure their species continued, but who would also extend a hand to a defeated enemy, if that enemy was willing to take it. Zarthax looked at Sarah's ship, at the human vessels beginning to establish order in the chaos they had created. The Vaksh had declared war on Earth. Humanity had declared the destruction of their legacy. And humanity had won. But in winning, they had changed the galaxy forever. The age of peace was over. The age of humanity had begun, and no one knew what that would mean for the future. 10 years had passed since the surrender of High Chancellor Vormesh. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood in what had once been the Vaksh Hall of Records on their homeworld. The building had been carefully restored by humans. Every piece of Vaksh history that had been destroyed during the war had been painstakingly recreated from backup files, from memory, from scattered fragments found across the galaxy. But it wasn't the same. It would never be the same. "Admiral, they're ready for you," her aide said quietly. Sarah nodded and walked through the rebuilt halls. On the walls hung images of Vaksh history, but edited, sanitized. The parts about galactic domination, about the conquest of weaker species, about the casual cruelty of empire, all gone. Replaced with a new narrative, one that humanity had written. She entered the main chamber where representatives from across the former Vaksh Empire waited. Dren, Keltar, Morvex, and others, all the species that had once been subjects were now independent. But they were here watching, and in the center of the room, contained in a preservation field, stood the last monument to the old empire. A crystalline pillar covered in Vaksh script, listing the names of their emperors going back 50,000 years. Tomorrow it would be destroyed. Is this really necessary? Commander Zarthax asked. He stood among the observers, older now, his scales dulled by age and regret. You've already won. The empire is gone. Our culture is scattered. Must you take even this? Sarah looked at him. They had developed a strange friendship over the years, built on mutual respect and shared trauma. He had helped end the war. She had ensured his people survived the peace. Yes, she said simply, it's necessary. Not because we want to be cruel, but because the galaxy needs to remember what happened here. She activated the holographic display. It showed the Vaksh Empire at its height. 40,000 systems, 12 species, trillions of beings under one rule. For 50,000 years, your people ruled through strength, Sarah said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. You conquered species, crushed their cultures, and forced them to serve. You built an empire on the bones of those weaker than yourselves. She changed the display. Now it showed Earth, that small blue planet in a backwater system. Then you met us. Young, primitive, barely out of our own solar system. You looked at us and saw weakness. You declared our extinction. You came to our worlds with genocide in your hearts. Another change. The war battles burning worlds. The slow collapse of the empire. We fought back. Not because we wanted war, but because you left us no choice. Surrender meant death, so we chose to fight. And in fighting, we became something terrible. We became what we needed to be to survive. The display showed the final days. The surrender, the occupation. Now the war is over. The Vaksh Empire is gone. Your subject species are free. Your military is disbanded. Your weapons are destroyed. Your history. She gestured at the crystalline pillar. Your history is being rewritten. Why? Zarthax asked. Why erase our past? Haven't you punished us enough? Sarah walked closer to him. This isn't punishment, Commander. This is prevention. The galaxy needs to forget the Vaksh Empire as it was, because if they remember you as the mighty rulers who almost exterminated humanity, someone will try to follow your example. Someone will look at your empire and think, we could do better. We could rule more effectively. We could succeed where the Vaksh failed. She turned to address everyone in the room. But if they remember you as a cautionary tale, as the empire that threatened humanity and was erased for it, then maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice. Maybe they'll choose peace over war, cooperation over conquest. So we become the monsters of your story, Zarthax said bitterly. No, Sarah corrected. You become a memory, a warning, a reminder of what happens when you threaten human survival. She activated another display. This one showed Earth's broadcasts, the messages being sent across the galaxy. We are humanity, the message began. We are not cruel by nature. We are kind, curious, and dream of fellowship among the stars. For centuries, we looked up at the night sky and wondered if we were alone. When we finally developed faster-than-light travel, we reached out with hope in our hearts. The message showed the first contact, the Vaksh threats, the declaration of extinction. But we learned that the galaxy is not kind. We learned that there are species who see peace as weakness, who view compassion as foolishness. We learned that to survive among the stars, we must be willing to do what survival demands. Images of the war, human ships, burning Vaksh worlds, the systematic destruction of an empire. So we made a choice. When the Vaksh Empire declared our extinction, we declared the destruction of their legacy. We didn't just fight to win. We fought to ensure that no one would ever threaten humanity with extinction again. The message changed to show the current state of former Vaksh, space, peaceful, rebuilding, but under human supervision. Now we extend an offer to the galaxy. Come to us in peace and we will be the best friends you have ever known. We will share our culture, our technology, our dreams of a better future. We will stand with you against threats. We will help you build a galaxy of cooperation and mutual prosperity. A pause. Then the message's tone changed, became harder. But come to us with hate. Threaten our children, our worlds, our future. Declare our extinction. And we will show you what the Vaksh learned. The display showed the ruins of the empire, the scattered remnants, the rewritten history. We will not just defeat you. We will erase you. We will ensure that in 10,000 years no one will remember you ever existed. Your achievements will be forgotten. Your culture will be dust. Your very name will become a cautionary tale told to children. This is what happens when you threaten humanity. The message ended with a simple statement. The choice is yours. Peace or erasure. We pray you choose wisely. The room was silent. Finally, a representative from the Dren species spoke up. You've made yourselves into the galaxy's enforcers. You've replaced one empire with another. No, Sarah said. We've replaced empire with balance. The Vaksh ruled through force and conquest. We're not ruling. We're watching. Waiting. Ready to respond if anyone makes the mistake of thinking humanity can be pushed around. She walked to the crystalline pillar, placed her hand on the preservation field. Tomorrow this monument will be destroyed. The physical record of Vaksh imperial history will be gone. Oh, we'll keep backups hidden away, stored where only humans can access them. Future historians will be able to learn the truth. But for the galaxy at large, the Vaksh Empire will become a legend. A story, a warning. And what about us? Zarthax asked. The Vaksh people who are still alive. What happens to us? Sarah looked at him with something like sympathy. You live. You rebuild. You create a new culture, a new identity. One based on cooperation rather than conquest. We'll help you. We'll provide resources, technology, guidance. But the price is accepting that the old empire is dead and will never return. She turned to leave, then paused. Commander Zarthax, walk with me. They left the hall together, walking through the restored building. Outside, the Vaksh homeworld was changing. Human architects worked alongside Vaksh builders, creating something new from the ashes of the old. Do you hate us? Sarah asked quietly. For what we've done to your people? Zarthax was quiet for a long moment. I should. Everything I was raised to believe, everything I fought for, you destroyed it. You took an empire that had stood for 50,000 years and reduced it to nothing. But you were right. About everything. The empire was built on oppression, on the suffering of conquered species, on the belief that age equals superiority. That might makes right. When I look at what we were, what we did, he shook his head. Maybe we needed to be stopped. Maybe we needed to be humbled. They stopped at a viewport overlooking the city. In the distance, they could see a monument being built. Not to the old empire, but to the species that had been freed from it. What will you do now? Sarah asked. Help rebuild, Zarthax said. Try to create something better. Something that doesn't require conquest and cruelty. It won't be easy. Many of my people still dream of the old days, of restoring the empire. And if they try, then you'll stop them. That's the new reality, isn't it? Humanity is the watchdog of the galaxy, the species that will ensure no one ever threatens extinction again. Sarah nodded slowly. That's not a role we wanted. But yes, it's the role we've accepted. Someone has to prevent the next empire from rising. Someone has to protect the weak species from the strong. Better us than someone who would abuse that power. How do you know you won't? How do you know that in 1,000 years, humanity won't become what the Vaksh were? We don't, Sarah admitted. Power corrupts. We know that. We've seen it in our own history. But we have something the Vaksh didn't. What's that? Fear, not fear of others. Fear of ourselves. Fear of what we could become. Every human who fought in this war saw what we're capable of when pushed to the edge. We saw ourselves erase an empire from history. We saw ourselves become the monsters we had to be to survive. And it scared us. She looked at Zarthax directly. We remember. We'll always remember. What we did to the Vaksh Empire isn't just a warning to others. It's a warning to ourselves. A reminder that we must never become the oppressors. That we must never look at another species and decide they don't deserve to exist. Pretty words, Admiral. But will you live up to them? Time will tell. But we're going to try. Because the alternative is becoming what you were. And we've seen where that leads. They stood in silence, watching the sunset over the rebuilt city. Two former enemies. Now awkward allies trying to build a better future from the ruins of war. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, Admiral Rodriguez looked at the same sunset through his office window. He was old now, the war having aged him beyond his years, but he had lived to see it end, to see humanity emerge not just victorious but changed. Was it worth it? His aide asked. Everything we did, everything we became. Rodriguez thought about the colonies that had been destroyed, the civilians who had died, the humans who had become killers in the name of survival, The Vaksh culture erased from existence. Yes, he said finally, because humanity survived. Because we proved that no one, gets to declare our extinction. Because we showed the galaxy that we're not prey, we're not victims, we're survivors. And if you threaten us, we will do whatever it takes to ensure our species continues. But at what cost? At any cost. That's the point. That's the lesson. Humanity will pay any price, bear any burden, become any monster necessary to survive. The Vaksh learned that. The whole galaxy learned that. He turned from the window. Now we have to prove we can be more than survivors. We have to show we can be builders, creators, friends. We have to prove that the same species that erased an empire can also build a better future. Can we? Rodriguez smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. We're humans. We survived ice ages and plagues. We climbed from prey to apex predator. We reached the stars and defeated an empire that had ruled for 50,000 years. If we can do all that, we can learn to be kind again. We can learn to be the species we always dreamed of being. He pulled up the Galactic Communications Network. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had never contacted humanity before were reaching out, some with offers of friendship, others with wary respect, all with understanding. Humanity was no longer the newcomer, no longer the primitive species that could be dismissed. They were a power, a force, something that had to be acknowledged and, in many cases, feared, but also something that could be trusted to stand against tyranny, to protect the weak, to ensure that no empire would ever again threaten extinction for those who refused to bow. Send out the response, Rodriguez ordered, to everyone who's reaching out. Tell them what we told the Vaksh. Come in peace and we'll be your friends. Come with hate and we'll be your end. The choice is theirs. Yes, sir. Rodriguez looked at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, the Vaksh were rebuilding. Somewhere out there, new species were watching humanity with a mix of fear and hope. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to exist in a new reality. A reality where humanity had proven they belonged among the stars, not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they were survivors, because they refused to be erased, because they would fight with everything they had to protect their own. The Vaksh had declared war on Earth. Humanity had declared the destruction of their legacy, and in doing so, humanity had become something new. Not conquerors, not tyrants, but guardians, watchdogs, the species that would ensure the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. 20 years after the war ended, Sarah Chen retired from the military. She returned to Earth, to a small house overlooking the ocean. She spent her days walking on the beach, watching the waves and trying to forget the things she had done in the name of survival. But she couldn't forget. None of them could. The war had changed humanity. Every child born after the war grew up learning about the Vaksh, about the empire that had threatened human extinction, about the lengths humanity had gone to survive. It became part of human identity, the knowledge that they had faced annihilation and chosen to fight back with such fury that they erased their enemy from history. Some humans were proud of it. They saw it as proof of humanity's strength, their determination, their refusal to be victims. Others were ashamed. They saw it as proof of humanity's capacity for cruelty, their willingness to become monsters when threatened. Sarah was both. She was proud that humanity had survived, ashamed of what they had become to achieve that survival. One day, as she walked along the beach, she found a young woman sitting on the sand, staring at the ocean. The woman looked up as Sarah approached. "Admiral Chen?" The young woman asked. "Just Sarah now. I'm retired, I know. I wanted to meet you. I'm writing my thesis on the Vaksh War, on the moral implications of what humanity did." Sarah sat down beside her. "And what have you concluded?" The young woman hesitated. "I don't know. That's the problem. Every time I think I understand it, I see another angle. We were defending ourselves, so our actions were justified. But we went beyond defense. We committed cultural genocide. We erased an entire civilization from history. How can that ever be justified?" Sarah picked up a handful of sand, let it run through her fingers. "It can't," she said quietly. "What we did was terrible. Necessary, perhaps, but still terrible. We made choices that will haunt us forever. We became the monsters we needed to be. Then how do you live with it? By remembering. By making sure it never happens again. By working every day to ensure that humanity never becomes what the Vaksh were. a species so confident in their superiority that they casually threaten genocide. The young woman looked at her. "Do you think we succeeded? Do you think humanity learned the right lessons?" Sarah thought about it. About the human ships still patrolling the galaxy, watching for threats. About the diplomatic corps working to build alliances and friendships with other species. About the memorials built for the Vaksh civilians who had died. The acknowledgement of what humanity had destroyed. "I think we're trying," Sarah said, "and maybe that's all we can do. Try to be better than we were. Try to build instead of destroy. Try to remember that the strength that saved us can also corrupt us if we're not careful." They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. "Admiral, Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course. If you could go back knowing what you know now, would you do it differently?" Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about New Shanghai, about Colonel Park and his soldiers who had died taking the Vaksh fleet with them. She thought about the colonies destroyed, the cultures erased, the billions of lives affected by the war. She thought about Earth, about humanity, about the children playing in parks who didn't know how close they had come to extinction. "No," she said finally, "I wouldn't, because the alternative was letting humanity die. And I would rather live with the guilt of what we did than die knowing we gave up without fighting. That's what it means to be human. We fight, we survive, we do whatever it takes." She opened her eyes, looked at the young woman. "But I would want to find a better way, a way that doesn't require becoming monsters, a way that protects humanity without destroying others. That's the challenge for your generation, to find that better way." The young woman nodded slowly. "We'll try. That's all anyone can do." Sarah stood, brushed the sand from her clothes. "One more thing," she said. "When you write your thesis, tell the truth. All of it. The good and the bad. The necessity and the horror. Don't sanitize it. Don't make us heroes or villains. Just tell what happened and let people draw their own conclusions." "Why?" "Because the galaxy needs to remember. Not just the Vaksh, not just their mistake, but ours too. The choices we made, the prices we paid, the things we became. Only by remembering all of it can we hope to do better next time." Sarah walked away, leaving the young woman on the beach with her questions and her doubts. As she went, she looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there among those stars, humanity had proven itself, had shown the galaxy what they were capable of when threatened. But they had also shown what they were capable of in peace. The rebuilding of Vaksh worlds, the liberation of conquered species, the creation of a new galactic order based on mutual respect rather than dominance. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was better. And maybe, Sarah thought, that was enough. Maybe the lesson wasn't that humanity was perfect or good or pure. Maybe the lesson was that humanity would do whatever it took to survive, but would also try to do better once survival was assured. The Vaksh had declared war on Earth, thinking humans were weak. Humanity had declared the destruction of their legacy, proving they were not. And now in the aftermath, humanity was trying to prove one more thing: that the same species capable of erasing an empire could also build a galaxy worth living in. Whether they would succeed remained to be seen. But they would try, because that's what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They learned. And they never ever gave up. Not on themselves. And not on their dreams of a better future among the stars. The war was over. The age of humanity had begun. And the galaxy watched, waiting to see what these strange, dangerous, hopeful beings would do next. In the end, that was humanity's true legacy. Not the destruction of the Vaksh Empire, though that would be remembered. Not the weapons or the strategies or the victories, though those would be studied. Their legacy was the choice. The choice to be more than survivors. The choice to extend mercy when vengeance would have been easier. The choice to build when destruction had proven so effective. The choice to be human, in all the complexity, contradiction, and hope that word implied. And across the galaxy, species that had once feared the newcomers began to understand. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was capable of terrible things. Humanity would fight with every weapon at their disposal to protect their own. But humanity was also kind, also curious, also hopeful, and perhaps that combination of strength and compassion, of determination and mercy was what the galaxy needed. A species strong enough to prevent tyranny but wise enough to choose peace. A species capable of destruction but committed to creation. A species that had learned the hard way what they could become, and had chosen to be something better. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not perfection, but possibility. The possibility that even after the darkest war, even after becoming monsters, even after erasing an empire from history, there could still be hope. Still be redemption. Still be a future worth fighting for. And in the end, perhaps that was the greatest victory of all.